Hello, my name is Faina, and I have dedicated the last 7 years to honing my craft and fine tuning my strategy.
Hi, I'm Louise Nonweiler and I'm a trading psychology expert. I've worked with traders for almost a decade across the globe. I am a multi-award-winning clinical hypnotherapist and life coach. I am also the founder and creator of a proven online psychology program.
At Trading in the Zen, we believe that there is much more to trading than numbers and probabilities. Like an athlete, a trader should operate in their peak state. Each week, you will have mind-blowing interviews as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better trader. Thanks for spending time with us today. Now, let's dive right in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Trading in the Zen. Today, we have an amazing guest. Her name is Alyse Amores, and she is an inspiration within the trading community. She has overcome so many challenges on her journey. And today we delve in and talk to her about her journey as a successful trader, the tools, the techniques, and most importantly, the mindset that she has acquired to help her achieve phenomenal success. I'm sure everyone listening is going to enjoy and find great value from this episode. So without further ado, welcome on the show, Alyse. We're really excited to have you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So let's get started. I mean, first of all, how did you get into the world of trading?
Let's see. In 2017, I was introduced to trading through a friend, but it was something that I was already looking to do. I was 28 when I started trading. And was it 28 or 29? I don't know. Whatever age I was in 2017. I like to mention that as well because I think a lot of people either start young or like at a different age. And I kind of want to tell people there's no better time to start than now. Whatever age you're at, you can start. But I was wanting to learn trading or investing, something where I could basically grow my money, invest my money, and have it work for me instead of me work for money. And so I was looking at either trading or real estate. But as it is with most people, I had no idea where to start and what to do. At the time, there were a lot of Forex MLM companies, which was my start, but that was only my introduction. Regardless whether you do it that way, which I don't really push for people to do that way, if I'm being honest. Just getting into it is great, and being able to be exposed to it with the free education that's online, there is a lot. And of course, I'm sure both of y'all offer or have resources of where you can offer it. But moving on, so that was my introduction to trading. I was definitely very excited about it from day one. I loved the process of learning it, the troubleshooting, everything that had to do with learning trading. And then I eventually seeked more mentorship. I learned alongside other traders, and year by year, that kind of just grow on top of one another. And then eventually, once you have some type of your own track record and your own statistics and data, then you're able to look at that and analyze that as well and continue to improve as a trader. But that's kind of a way to have 6 years run short. But obviously, it's going to take a while to cover 6 years. So yeah, that's how it started.
So tell us, now that we're speaking about so trading is the main thing you do and how you earn a living, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I've been full-time. I left after a year, which I do tell people that's not like the job that I was at. Mm-hmm. That's not common for most people. So I do make sure to put that norm out there. Yeah, but I had saved, but I continued to work for that whole year while I continued to stack that money. So that's the thing, is that a lot of times people will get that first withdrawal and they're like, okay, I can make it now. And they leave. And then now every single time they trade, their performance is dependent on them making money to pay their bills. So for me, since I have a child I was looking out for, and I have people that depend on me, I didn't have the luxury of being able to do that. So I am great. I love seeing people bet on themselves, but just make sure that you're good, because even once you are consistent and profitable, it's going to vary what your withdrawals look like. Even if you have months where you can do 8%, you have months where you do 1%, break even or negative, right? So that varies. So on really good months, you got to make sure to do well and put that money aside. So that's something I've definitely learned trading full time for this many years.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're discussing the real proper way of doing it, because so many people glamorize trading, right? And people are cashing in the 401ks, taking the last dollar. And I feel like trading is so stressful to begin with that if you go in with the goal of making money, that's a sure way to crash and burn, because you're not making rational decisions. It's a fear, or like the strong desire, which is still fear. It's still fear of fueled. And then you take your profits early, then you don't take a certain setups, which you're supposed to be trading. So it's really great to hear you honestly tell people what that takes. And on the subject of what it takes, what's everyone seems to be like an overnight success now, and no one talks about all the days and months and years that it takes to like get really, really good at what we do. What is the average time do you think it takes for someone to get good?
I definitely think it typically takes years. And I do stress that even though I was profitable then, my win rate was low and my consistency wasn't there yet. The main reason, if not the only reason, why I was really profitable early on was only because of risk management. I was trading with my own money. It was little funds that I started with. And so I traded it very tight with risk because I didn't want to lose it. So you have two opposite spectrums when it comes to most people with trading. They either are really risk adverse or they have the gambling mentality, and it's one or the other. Whichever one it is, it needs to be either kind of pushed forward or drawn back, right? So, yeah, I mean, I kind of went through both, if I'm being forthright with you, because I trialed with like really, people are like, well, you're not going to make any money trading like that. So then I trade higher, and I'm like, oh, it is nice when you see those gains, and you're like, okay. Mm-hmm. But then you have that first loss with a bigger lot size, and you're like, mm-hmm. Oh, right. It works both ways. So, mm-hmm. And then when you get used to trading like that, you kind of get addicted to that feeling of like that immediate rush. So then it's like, then you have to scale back. So everybody's going to go through those challenges, whether it's only one or the other. For me, it was definitely a little bit of both. But after having the side where I was risk adverse and then going a little bit heavier on, and then realizing, okay, well, I'm not going to be profitable this way, because until my win rate increases, then I'm constantly knocking out my wins. So basically after a period of point of doing that, it's like, okay, this is not going to work for me, because it's great while I'm making it, but then when it's gone, it's like, you might as well not have made it at all. So it was like, let me just find balance in the middle of like where I can practice proper risk, and then we can grow the account from there. So the main thing that I will say is that besides having the right information, obviously, and learning, with proper education, besides that, I think the main difference of the learning curve with everybody is simply how quickly you correct yourself whenever you have lessons in trading. You always have those lessons of what you need to correct, but how many times are you going to do it? I might have done it for a month. Some people may do the same thing for 2 to 3 years. Previously, when I taught, I constantly, whenever I have that first class with somebody, I always ask what they can improve on and what they do wrong. People always know what they're doing wrong already. And sometimes they've been doing it literally for years. And it's like, okay, so when you can correct that, like, I can help you with this information. I can help you with this, but you have to correct this part. Like, I can tell you're over leveraging, but you already know you're over leveraging. Now, obviously, I can still give them additional tips and things that may help aid that they haven't done before in correcting that. But ultimately, you have to self-correct. You have to be able to make those corrections, or it's just not going to happen. It's going to take double the amount of time that it needed to.
Yeah.
It's also like, depending on what it is that you trade, I think it's very important to understand that each thing trades differently. Like Forex trades kind of differently than futures, because you're so contract based. And, and I always tell people that if you can't make money with micros, you will not make money with real contracts. You just won't. And if you can't make consistently $100 a week, you're not going to make $1,000 a week, because everyone comes in and they want to make $1 million right away. And my question is always, have you made $100 consistently for a month every week? And if because futures are fast and furious. And so I always tell people that if you are not sure of what you're doing, you will lose everything in the split of a second. They move, it's just, you have to know what it is and the beast that it is for you to be able to tame it, because people go blindly and not everything, apples and oranges, different strategies for different modalities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think consistency matters more than anything. That's the reason why whenever I've done any type of audition for fun, it's always a long track record, plus typically an audition phase. They want to see that this matches this. They want to see consistency. I think anybody can have a streak where they're profitable for a period of time, depending on like a good market can give people good plays, right? It's the same thing with the stock market where it's a good market and it's going up, people are buying. I'm a great trader. It's like, okay, well, and then the down market comes and like nothing I'm doing is working. Well, because you were trading a good market. So consistency is what matters and longevity in trading. So you have to be able to display that you can trade different conditions or that you can practice restraint. Let's say you only trade bullish market. Well, then you shouldn't be trading in a market that doesn't complement your trading style. So whatever that needs to be. But consistency when it comes to trading, at least for the long game, is more important than anything else.
Absolutely. Now, the three of us know that one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, like anything in life, is mindset. Mindset is fundamental in trading. You can have, don't get me wrong, you can have a good strategy, risk management, trading plan. It's important. However, if a trader comes in and they haven't worked on or invested in their psychology of trading, they are not going to succeed long term. And that's a fact. So my question is, for you, what kind of like psychological challenges or emotional challenges did you face kind of in the beginning, or do you still face as a trader? And, you know, how do you overcome them?
Right. So the two main things that I kind of dealt with was a little bit of imposter syndrome and self-sabotage. Those are the two main things that I kind of dealt with. So imposter syndrome is basically where you're usually, like, at least in my situation, you're like kind of living a different life than you have previously, right? Because I grew up very lower middle class to now having, you know, really good money that I didn't have before. So if it's a completely different lifestyle for me, and when you've never lived that way before, it can feel like you're not in your own shoes, if that makes sense. And so I had to deal with imposter syndrome a little bit. It can also stem from simple things like lack of confidence or insecurity around new things. You know, a lot of things can add to it, but I definitely dealt with a little bit of imposter syndrome. And then self-sabotage, right? So we do that in many different ways. There's different ways you can do it, but typically whatever that negative trait is in your trading, that's typically self-sabotage. So whatever it is that, like, let's say you are having a winning streak, but that's because you've been disciplined and you've been practicing your strategy. Well, one day you're like, well, I'm the queen of the world. I'm not losing anymore. It's not going to happen. And then you go big and then you have a loss and you knock out all your wins. And then it's like, okay, I sabotaged myself by doing that. I followed this plan to be profitable, and then you mess it up one day and that is gone. So whatever that looks like for you, it can vary how we tend to do it. But typically for me, my self-sabotaging behaviors are either going back to older thought processes that like didn't serve me, or just doing actions that kind of hinder from my results.
Yeah.
See, for me, it was like I was always performance. As a child, I was always performance judged by like family and my parents, right? So if I did well, then I was worth something. If I didn't do well, then I felt like my mom used to say, what's it be? You celebrating second place, and that kind of mentality creates perfectionism. And in trading, it really can hinder your performance because that one or two or a string of losses, and they happen to everyone. And I don't care what anyone says who says that I don't lose, I never lose, I don't have losing streaks. That's not true. It's just simply not true. And I know that once it starts, if I have a string of losses, I have to fight really hard to not have the dialogue of, you see, they are right. You are not worth it. You are not good enough. You are not smart enough. And it takes a lot of self-control and working on myself to speak to myself differently and remind myself that I wouldn't talk like that to someone else. I wouldn't talk like that to a child. And why am I so hard on myself? And that just will set me up for more losses. You come in the mindset, in scarcity mindset, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so it's a lot of work to constantly check myself and tell myself, hey, we're not doing this again. We're not going down that, like, your whole life does not depend on that one trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So talking about, let's go and talk about kind of trading, because we know that it's not overnight. It takes years to master and it is continuous. I think one of the biggest things as well is the psychology around money. Now, what are your thoughts on, because I've seen the difference between traders day and night. The traders who have like other incomes to the traders who are transitioning or just having one income, which is trading, it's day and night. So it is around the psychology of money. So my question is, do you feel that every trader, no matter how long they've been trading, should have at least another source of income or investments?
I think generally speaking, if you aim to be wealthy, you should have multiple streams of income. When I was learning this in my transition from scarcity mindset to wealth and abundance, everybody reads about multimillionaires have up to 7 to 8 streams of income. I was such a worker mindset that it's like, well, how can they have that many jobs? It's like, when people have streams of income, they have investments and things, but there's different types of income, right? So I even had to learn simple things as what are the different ways that I can generate income, passive, active, and then residual and interest, and like all different types of ways. And so I think, of course, you should be having multiple streams of income. And it's like money likes to be used and it's a tool, right? So the thing is like, if I'm practicing scarcity, it's like if I finally have money, but I keep it in the bank and it's just appreciating, then I'm growing money just to stop the growth of it. It's like, what's the point of that? So I had to change my relationship with money and not be scared of it. That was a big part of it. It's like, now I have it. What do I do with it? Just hold on to it, right? Like I had to change my relationship with money and not be scared to continually invest it. And even with that, like, you have to accept, just like in trading, we have to accept risk. It's the same thing when you're investing your money and putting it out there. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing means like you're always going to get a set return on anything. So whatever you're risking, yes, it is at risk to be lost or have a loss on it. It doesn't mean full loss, but I had to completely change my relationship with money to be able to do that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I believe that money is an energy. It's a energy flow. And when we're holding on really, really tightly, we're coming from like a fear-based place and we're cutting off our own kind of flow of money because we're cutting off the energy. And money is meant to be exchanged. It's supposed to be a continuous cycle of putting it back and getting it back and being kind of free with it. And I know that even in trading, when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, I release the outcome. I'm not holding on to this, win or lose. You shouldn't celebrate your wins or mourn your losses, because then it's still, you're so attached to the outcome, right? But it's so hard to get there. If you do have a bunch of losses, how do you, what kind of dialogue do you have with yourself, and how do you come back and remain centered for the next day?
So I kind of like that you mentioned the part before about being hard on yourself, because I mentioned to people that we do need to practice more grace with ourselves and be forgiving. It is fine to analyze and correct the action if it is a behavior that you need to correct, but that doesn't mean that you have to you can correct the behavior without completely shaming yourself and feeling like a complete failure. If you are a trader and you're accepting the risk of loss, that means that you understand it's going to happen. So if you're upset about your actions, that's one thing, and you're able to correct it, that's fine. But if you're just going to beat yourself up for the sake of self-depreciating, punishment, then is that really helpful as much as it's actually hurting you when you're trading? Because now you'll be trading very fear-based, and that's not what we're looking to do.
I think there's a real fine line, isn't there? And I think that it's with anything in life, because we're here to evolve and to grow and to learn lessons. But at the same time, we can be really self-critical, especially in trading, like we've spoken about. And I think it's about finding that balance between learning lessons and also being your biggest supporter. That can be hard, especially when the markets are fast moving. As we know, they're potentially losing money. I mean, what kind of practices do you do and techniques, prior to kind of market sessions or trading sessions?
So prior to trading, I like to be focused, whatever that entails. So I know some people have like one routine. I will say that my routine does vary, but it's really dependent on what the energy is, right? So I like to be focused. I do try to meditate often. I'm not consistent enough to do it every day like I would desire to, although that is a working practice for me. But sometimes it's moving my body in certain ways in terms of like just moving energy around or maybe getting in a good mood. So some days, people talk about the music they play, and sometimes people don't even play music. So obviously everybody has their own thing. But one day I may have like classical music on. I don't care how bougie that sounds. I really actually like classical music, but I think I
Me
grew up
too.
doing ballet, so I have a love for it. And then some days it may be, high energy music. So sometimes the mood just has different feelings around it. And so, but generally speaking, I like to be either focused or in a good mood. Do I have to be to trade? No. Does it not? It doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? So, some days I'll journal. Like, obviously, I do always analyze and break down my trades and journal, whether it's daily or weekly, at minimum weekly, sometimes daily, depending on, the trading day. But it really just varies on what the mood is and what I need to do. Sometimes just to take a walk, and because sometimes my meditations can be active meditations, meaning being present, right? Because meditation really means being present, and everything that has to be is just like which is also meditation, but it can also be just being active and present in what you're doing. So sometimes it's taking a walk, being a little bit grounded, whatever that entails.
Yeah.
How do you deal with, I think a lot of trading, which people don't realize, is waiting. Because people think that we sit down and we start clicking, trading. And in essence, I probably trade 5 minutes, maybe 10, actual execution and managing my risk and all of that. But the rest of the time, we're sort of waiting. What do you do while you're waiting? Because sometimes you trade out of boredom. Not you, but I say, like, eventually you sit there long enough, you start to see things, right? So like I try to get up and I try to walk away. I try to come back, leave the room, come back again. What do you do to counter boredom to prevent yourself from just firing out of sheer just impatience?
Right. That's such a great question. It does depend on your trading style, because scalpers will stay on the screen, but doesn't mean you're trading every second. Whereas sometimes people will set alerts and just go away from the screen and like come back when it's alerted, right? So it does vary on your trading style. But since I do scalp, like when I'm on the charts for that 2 hours or whatnot, I am actively on the charts. So one of the main things that I do so that I'm not over trading is typically I'll mark the zones that I'm trading, and I'm pretty much only trading in that area. Besides that, I'm observing market changes and information that's coming in. And so I'm just kind of being present and observing what's going on in the market, whether I'm marking new levels and validating previous levels, and like any type of change of information that's coming in, I'm going to be either adding to or taking away from what I'm doing. Besides that, I mean, that's kind of the other reason for having the music and other things playing, is like, so I'm not so intently focused on like, I have to get this entry, I have to make money. If it's not setting up, it's not doing what it needs to do, then you don't need to be acting on it. I think that's one of the main reasons why people overtrade, is because they're trying to catch every pip in the market. And they're not being specific on the zones they need to trade. But, God forbid we're bored, right? So I think that's the worst thing to happen in this century. It's like us feeling like we have to be entertained every single second. Maybe we can just be bored for a few minutes and be very profitable being bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say that you become profitable when you being bored, and when neither losing nor winning gives you a high, right? You're just bored because you're not attached emotionally to either outcome. And that's when you achieve greatness. If a loss catches you and throws you for a loop, and if for a win, you're sitting there celebrating, clapping in little hands, you're very much attached to the outcome. And I don't think that's going to bring you anything good. What is your favorite thing to trade? What is your moneymaker?
Gold is one of my babies. I definitely trade gold, and I trade Dow. That's what I trade currently. Although I am dabbling into futures a little bit, so I'm going to be trialing. I know I'm definitely going to stick, to either Dow, Nasdaq, or SPX, but I just need to see which one. I think that maybe I'll have to trade a different one when I do futures, just depending on how the contracts trade and how it trades it with the broker. So I'm going to trial out and see if that switches.
The Dow and the S&P move very, very similarly. It's just the tick value of a Dow is lower than the S&P. And so I always recommend people who are starting to trade futures to go with the Dow, because it's pretty much mirroring ES at a much cheaper, or S&P. ES is the symbol for futures, but in a much cheaper tick value. And so there's a big difference between 5 and 1250. So, those losses, it really is per tick. Yeah.
So let's talk about where you're at now. So obviously you're a very successful trader. You're an inspiration to a lot of traders out there worldwide. You've been on many podcasts. You are a phenomenal trader, because we've known each other for many years. But let's talk about, do you teach or do you mentor any other traders, or do you solely kind of just trade for yourself?
Honestly, currently I'm not. I did for a period of time at a few different companies, and then I did a little bit of personal mentorship. But I kind of took a break from it because I really just want to be able to focus on the goals that I want to reach. And I kind of enjoy doing it that way, because I feel like when I take breaks to take time to myself, even if I go back to it, because I have done that twice where I've kind of taken a break and then taken some students, kind of went back. I think I'm able to add more value when I do it that way, because if I get more experience and more knowledge, I'm able to be of better help to people when I'm able to do that. So I feel like, no matter how much I do like to help people, it is very time consuming, and it does take up, a lot of energy as well. So for me to be able to do it, I kind of have to respect my boundaries of respecting my own patience and energy and everything like that. So I do end up taking breaks from it. So this has probably been my longest break since I had started teaching. But I will say, even when I started teaching, it wasn't really something I was necessarily looking to do. It kind of just happened naturally, where when people ask questions a lot, I would just kind of help and assist and explain things in a way that I understood. And people were like, wow, you really should be teaching. That made so much sense. Because the thing is that although I do have a way that I prefer to explain things, since once you have a true understanding of something, you can explain it 10 different ways. So the thing is like, okay, you don't understand it this way. Let's try it this way, or let's try it this way. So since I sometimes have an intricate way of understanding things, I try to explain it in a way that is simple for other people, so that it's not as confusing. Because I think that's what makes trading really hard for a lot of people, is that it's already intricate, but sometimes people even make it harder than it is. So it's like I try my best to simplify it so that somebody who's completely new to this can learn it, because I was completely new to it. I had no background in finance. I still haven't gone to school for finance. So, I try to take just those experiences and break it down as simply as I can from what I've learned. And I always make a point too to say that this is my experience, or this is what I've seen in other people, because ultimately I can't say anything beyond my own experience. So I think a lot of times when people teach, kind of just bring this around, because I feel like people make this mistake when they're teaching. They try to teach like this is the only way and this is the only way to do something. I don't think that's a good approach, generally speaking, in teaching, but especially in trading, because many and multiple strategies are profitable. It really more so has to do with the trader than the strategy. Strategy doesn't hurt. But if there was only one way to be profitable, then that means the only people that would be profitable would be trading one strategy, which is not the case. There's multiple strategies that are traded. So, I like to bring that when I teach.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many different strategies out there, so many different ways to look at it. And I always tell people, study some, don't get analysis paralysis. There is no golden nugget. You're not going to learn every single strategy out there. And every time you lose, you don't need to change your strategy completely, because you don't know if your strategy is working or not, if you're constantly modifying it. And also, what I understand and what I see, although I can describe to you, I guarantee you that 5 people you tell the same exact thing will do different things. It has to do with your mindset, with the way your pattern recognition, with a lot of things, right? So it's interesting to see how many people can look at the same thing and see sometimes opposing things, right? So I always say, You learn some, but then you have to develop a style that's yours. You have to understand, because people say, tell me, can you help me get in and get out? And I'm like, well, that's not going to help you, because you have no idea why I'm getting in, and you certainly don't know why I'm getting out. So you have to spend time back testing ad nauseum, because A, it's pattern recognition, and B, it gives you confidence in your strategy. Which brings me to my next point. How much back testing have you done for your strategy, or did you learn on the job?
I did so much back testing in the first years. I feel like that was almost all I did. Now that I have a strategy that I've been doing for years, mainly what I'm doing is really just analyzing data and then making tweaks from there. But back testing is so heavy in the beginning because you need to be practicing and kind of seeing the errors, or like the type of issues that might come up in your strategy, and kind of troubleshoot them while you're back testing. And so, but it is different, obviously, than trading live, which is now why I kind of analyze my data more so than anything else, or like just my statistics and my tracking. I look at that specifically. Back testing, and to me, is like a way of practicing and analyzing the information of the strategy, whereas practicing data is like practicing yourself. So one is like the strategy, and one is like analyzing yourself. And then I take both of that information and kind of try to put it together to improve on what I need to work on.
Amazing. Amazing. I find that a lot of traders are resilient. And when I say that, resilient in where they just keep showing up. Of course, there's times where they just kind of like say, I've had enough, I need a break, whether it's a couple of days, couple of months, but they come back to it. And, they trade, as we know, again, it's not an overnight thing. But what has been your biggest driver to keep showing up every single day or every week?
Well, right. I mean, the big term vision of what I'm creating for a different life and outcome for my family has always been the main driver. Absolutely. Besides that, and when it comes to the personal, I just like the challenge and the growth that comes along with trading. I don't think anything has ever challenged me more than this. I've done sports growing up, and I've definitely had, well, sports are physical, but also mental, because you have to have mental edge to be able to perform. But I've just always loved the challenge of trading. And I guess it's something that drives me to continually overcome that.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, for I've done sports as well. When I was young, I was like on a junior Olympic team for fencing for Ukraine when I used to Soviet. And there's something about, I always think about fencing and you playing chess, you sort of kind of looking for the opening. You're looking for the right opening, because if you go in without seeing the whole big picture, and people get, I think a lot of times, tunnel vision when they're trading, and because they're so committed, or so they can get off the treadmill and see that this one trade is not going to end your life, and they're so committed to that one idea that they can pivot, and instead of looking at the market and saying what the story of the market is telling, they're trying to force the market to kind of bend to the idea that they had when they woke up. How do you manage pivoting? Let's say you had an idea in the morning, you come in with that idea, and the idea is invalidated. Happens. How do you pivot on the job?
So that's such a good question, because I feel like a lot of people aim as much as they can to make their strategy very mechanical, and that's for a reason. Is to take away the discretionary part. But the discretionary part can be important if you potentially need to like execute or change off of execution that you have, because you got to go with the information. So the reason why you practice and you backtest is basically because you want to see different scenarios and you want to trade different things and all those experiences. But sometimes, depending on how long you've been trading, there might be something that's happened in the market that you haven't seen before, whether it's a black swan event, whether it's trading during some type of economic conditions that you never traded before. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut and instincts. So that will grow in time as you become more experienced. But I actually am a strong believer that sometimes a little bit of flexibility in your trading is actually a strength. I'm not saying that you have to change your strategy every single day. No, but having a little bit of that flexibility in your trading is something that I think is important. I will say also, since I do scalp a majority of the time, I'm not as attached to my bias as everybody else, because since my trade setups are based on validation and invalidation, the thing is that if my setup is invalidated, that means another scenario should be valid. So a lot of times people will basically, this is invalid, I'm just not going to trade. I'm okay with taking the other setup, but that has to be based off your confidence and how you're able to trade. Not everybody's able to do that. And I respect people doing whatever is in their capability. But for me, I have no problem being able to do that. And then even when I switch the scenario to the other side, I'm still looking for confirmations on that one. Okay, this one is also setting up nicely. I'm able to switch my bias and be able to do that because I'm not attached to the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it comes back to wanting to be right. People want to be right. So like, well, this idea had to play out because I've been right. You know, that goes back to what we were talking about with the winning streak of thinking you can't lose. And now they feel like, well, the market's wrong. Well, I think the market disagrees with you. So the quicker you learn to be wrong, the quicker you're going to be right.
Yeah.
I think trading is a recency bias. We all, like traders, a lot of traders have a recency bias. If you're had a bunch of losses, you're fearful, you come in fearful. If you have a bunch of wins, you come in, you think, I got this. This is it. I found the golden goose. It's happening right now. And especially on those days, you get taught some really, really harsh lessons. And then you're like, okay, so maybe no. What is the best piece of advice you can give to somebody who's just starting out?
Be a student. I think because you can get lucky early on, I think one of the worst things that can happen is that you get lucky and you think you know what you're doing and you still have no idea. You have to continue to be a student. You have to continue to learn. I still continue to learn, even if it's just my own data, even if it's not a new strategy, I continue to improve on my own strategy. I continue to learn the market and flexibility, like things that are happening in the market. You're a constant student. So if you're coming in with really high pride, then it's going to be a long uphill battle for you because it's just going to be harder to take those lessons. You're going to be that person who takes longer to be profitable because you never want to be corrected. And so you simply have to be a student. And then the other thing, going back to what we mentioned before, is practice grace with yourself. You're learning something completely new. You knew nothing about it yesterday. I kind of correlate it to learning a new language, right? We're learning the language of the charts. So you're learning candlesticks or fundamentals, but you're learning a whole new language. You wouldn't go learn a new language and want to know it within a week or a month. That's not realistic. Even if there are these secret programs that can maybe do that, that's cool and all, but do you actually have an understanding of it? Or are you just memorizing, repeating something? So just because you're kind of learning something doesn't mean that you've got it right away until you're actually able to repeat that and grow into it consistently. So be a student and practice grace with yourself. And I think those are two key factors that will take you in this game a lot further than if you're doing the opposite.
I love that. That's perfect. So that brings me on to my next question. What is the best book that you've ever read, whether it's helped you with your trading or it's personal or just helped you in life and just helped you evolve? What's been the one book?
Right. So a lot of people like Tom Hugard's book, The Best Loser Wins, because it kind of goes over, you're going to be losing and you have to get around that.
It's my Bible.
Yes, very good.
I
also like Zen Trader. Zen Trader is good because a lot of people practice attachment in their trading. And so it goes over disattachment, not being so attached. And so, because really attachment comes with control, right? So in trading, all you can control is yourself. You can't control the market. All you can control is what you're doing and reacting to it. So it kind of goes back to that attachment of being able to flow in the market. And then if I have to I want to bring up a book outside of trading, because obviously people always bring up trading books, but The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer is a really good book. It goes over a lot of different things. I'll leave it as a surprise to people if they read it, but it's one of a few books that helped me become an observer of my thoughts versus become the identity of my thoughts. So a lot of times when your mind is kind of going crazy and whatnot, you kind of just have to be an observer of that and practice objectivity and kind of separate yourself. And that helped me a lot with my negative thinking, as well as hypnotherapy, as you know.
Yes.
But that also helped me in addition to the work that I was doing on my subconscious.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, actually, because, you know, as traders, it is about being the observer. It's not kind of about suppressing emotions. We're emotional beings. It's about being the observer of kind of like how we're thinking, almost kind of looking from the outside in, like meditation and hypnosis. So yeah, I think that was probably, I don't think I've read that book actually, but we'll share a link to the books.
Book. I love it.
Yeah.
I've listened to it a few times.
I'll put that on my list of books to read. But
Louise, you and I have a growing list of books. We exchange book ideas daily. I think, like,
we do.
When I looked at my credit card, my most money spent every time we hear a book. I'm like, oh, I just bought it. She's like, I just bought it.
There's another one.
We're like, okay, but it's constant. I think I spend as much money on books, probably more than I do on makeup. And that says a lot.
Physical copies and audio copies.
Yeah, me too. I love to read. It's, it's good for us. It's so good for our, to create more knowledge and for inspiration and so much more. Alyse, we've come to the end of the show. Please come back in 2024. You are an inspiration to so many traders. I'm sure every listener who's going to listen to this podcast, Evergreen, is just going to go get so much value from you and from your experience and your journey and your knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you so
much. It was such a pleasure to speak to a woman in the field. It's a treat for me. I don't get a lot of these opportunities. I speak to a lot of dudes about a lot of things. And so aside from my best friend, Kathy, you're like the other woman trader I know. And I've been doing it for 7 years. So that says a lot about the field itself and how, like, we're sisters in arms. And it's been an absolute pleasure to shoot ideas between the two of us, because I think you have a lot of centered, reasonable thoughts to share, as opposed to like people who say they never lose. But so thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Alyse.
Y'all gonna have to listen to someone else for lies and propaganda. That's somebody else, because we're gonna tell you like it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and we'd love to have you back in 2024. So to all of our listeners out there, we will share Alyse's social media, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
If you would like to be a guest on the show, then please contact us at info@tradinginthezen@gmail.com. If you're a trader who is struggling with their psychology, then please go to www.hypnosisfortraders.co.uk. There are various trading psychology packages and programs that will transform you as a trader. For one-to-one trading strategy mentoring sessions with Faina, please contact her below. Her details are in the description. Thank you.